As the wind howls through the narrow streets, biting at your skin with the sharp sting of winter, you stand at the edge of the Heilongjiang River, where the world seems to freeze in time. It is one of those rare, still nights when everything is blanketed in snow, and the air is so cold it feels like it could crack in two. The once raging river has now become a vast sheet of ice, its surface untouched by any sign of movement, save for the occasional flutter of snowflakes drifting gently to the ground. The villages that line the river seem to be holding their breath, as if even they fear the silence that grips them in the depths of winter. The houses, small and simple, are covered with thick layers of snow, their rooftops rounded and swollen from the weight of the cold. Smoke curls from the chimneys, rising into the pale sky, but it doesn't escape. It vanishes as soon as it appears, absorbed by the heavy, oppressive air that fills the night. There's something unnerving about the stillness here, the kind of stillness that feels like it's holding on to something, a secret perhaps, or a memory long buried beneath layers of ice. And yet, in this silence, you can feel it, a whisper of a story carried by the wind. It's as if the land itself is speaking, murmuring to you from the ancient depths of its frozen heart. And if you listen closely, you will hear the tale of the Heishui Beast, a creature of legend whose presence haunts the coldest nights. You are sitting by a warm fire in one of the village homes. The crackling flames cast flickering shadows on the walls, their dance interrupted only by the soft murmurs of the wind outside. It is here, on nights like these, when the world is silent and the cold presses in from all sides, that the elders tell their stories, the ones that have been passed down through generations, their words laced with both awe and fear. And tonight, one of the village elders leans in close, lowering his voice to a whisper as the room goes still. The story he begins to tell is not one for the faint-hearted, nor is it one that should be taken lightly. You've heard of the Heishui Beast, haven't you? His voice is low and heavy, as if the weight of the words he's about to speak is enough to shift the very air around you. You nod, but the mention of the name stirs something deep within you, a flicker of unease that you can't quite place. It comes on the coldest nights, when the air is so thick with snow you can hardly see a thing, he continues. Some say it's the spirit of the river, born from the depths of the water. Others say it's something older than any of us can imagine. But whatever it is, it's not something you want to encounter in person, not unless you wish to be lost to the winter forever. The old man pauses for a moment, his eyes glancing towards the window, as though expecting to see something out there in the snow. The Heishui Beast is not a creature of flesh and blood, he explains. It's something far more dangerous. It has eyes that burn like fire, and a body that slithers beneath the ice like a serpent. When it moves, the very ground trembles, and when it appears, the world around it changes, becomes something otherworldly. You sit up, the warmth of the fire suddenly feeling distant, your thoughts caught by the words that hang in the air. Some say you can hear it before you see it. The elder continues. The wind picks up, howling like a wolf on the hunt. The snow falls heavier, and the temperature drops even further, colder than you can bear. And if you're brave enough or foolish enough to venture out, you'll see it. The Heishui Beast, rising from the frozen river, its fiery eyes glowing in the darkness. It's said to have the power to control the weather, to twist the very world around it. Snow, fog, ice, everything bends to its will. No one knows why it appears or what it seeks, but it's said to come only on the nights when the cold is at its most intense, when the ice is thickest, and the world feels as though it could crack under the weight of the winter. As the fire flickers and pops in the hearth, you can't help but feel the weight of the elder's words. It is a legend, yes, but the way he speaks, the gravity in his voice, makes it seem as though the beast is not just a story. Perhaps it is something that has been woven into the very fabric of this land, something that haunts the dreams of the villagers and shapes the cold winds that blow down from the north. They say the Heishui Beast doesn't come to harm people, not directly, but it is a force of nature, uncontrollable, unpredictable, like the very storms that rage across the land. Some believe it is a guardian of the river, punishing those who dare to trespass on its icy domain. Others think it is a manifestation of the harsh winter itself, a spirit born from the frozen river that brings the cold as both a blessing and a curse. Whatever it is not a creature to be ignored. The villagers know this all too well. They respect the cold, the snow, and the river, for in this harsh environment, nature has the upper hand. And when the Heishui Beast rises from the depths of the ice, they know it is a reminder of the power of the land, a power that cannot be controlled. Now, as the night stretches on, you feel the weight of the tail pressing in on you. You think of the frozen river outside, the wind rattling against the windows, and the darkness that swallows everything. The snow seems to fall heavier, the air colder, as though the Heishui Beast is watching you, waiting for the right moment to appear. But is it just a story? A warning to respect the cold and the river? Or is there something more to this legend than meets the eye? You wonder, for a moment, if perhaps you too might one day encounter the Heishui Beast out there in the wilds of winter, when the night is at its darkest and the world is buried beneath snow. But as you sit there, wrapped in the warmth of the fire, you hear something, a strange sound on the wind, a soft, mournful howl, like the wind itself is calling to you. You freeze, your heart racing, but when you glance outside, you see nothing, just the swirling snow and the black night stretching out over the frozen river. The elder's voice cuts through your thoughts. Remember, the Heishui Beast isn't something you want to face, especially on a night like tonight. It comes when the world feels like it's on the brink of breaking. It comes with the cold. And with that, the room grows quiet once more. The only sound, the crackling fire, and the distant howl of the winter wind. The Heishui Beast's legend lives on, a part of the very cold that surrounds you, a whisper on the wind, just waiting for the night when it might return. When winter grips the land, the people of Heilongjiang know that the night will soon fall heavy and cold. The rivers freeze, the forests are silenced by the deep snow, and the landscape becomes a cold wasteland, a world where only the most resilient can survive. Yet, in the midst of this unrelenting cold, the Heishui Beast emerges. It is a creature so intertwined with the very essence of winter that its arrival is not just anticipated, it is feared. The people who live by the Heilongjiang River, especially those who have walked the frozen paths for generations, know the signs well. They speak of the howling wind, which grows more deafening as the night descends. At first, it sounds like the wind itself, but as the hours pass, the howling becomes something more. It becomes a call that echoes from the depths of the frozen river, a cry that rises from the blackened waters below the ice. The wind is the Heishui Beast's herald, announcing its presence before it even steps onto the land. It's said that when the wind grows fiercer than it ever has before, when it carries an icy bite that feels like needles on the skin, the beast is close. People lock their doors tightly, draw their children near, and look to the heavens, praying that the beast will pass them by. But no one can escape it, for when the Heishui Beast rises, it rises to claim the land as its own. The Heishui Beast, for all its terror, does not appear suddenly or without warning. It moves beneath the surface, like the river itself, its dark, serpentine form curling and uncoiling in the cold water, waiting for the moment when the land is blanketed in ice. The ice above it becomes the perfect disguise, a veneer of cold solidity that hides the true danger below. Imagine the scene: the land covered in snow, the air filled with an unnatural stillness, as though the world is holding its breath. The ice cracks, a low groan echoes from the depths, and then a shudder runs through the land, as if the earth itself has trembled at the sight of what is about to emerge. The ground shakes for a moment, and those brave enough to step outside see the snow drifting in the wind, swirling around as though caught in the vortex of some invisible force. Then, from beneath the ice, something stirs. The water shifts, ripples spreading outward across the frozen river. The surface trembles, and the very air seems to grow heavier, colder, and just like that, the Heishui Beast emerges from its slumber. It is not a creature that steps lightly onto the earth. Its massive body, coiled and serpentine, pushes through the ice with ease, sending jagged shards flying into the air. As it rises from the river, the ice cracks and breaks apart, the thick sheets of frozen water shattering under its immense weight. For those who are watching, the sight is both mesmerizing and terrifying. The Heishui Beast, with its glistening ice-covered scales, emerges like a living river, an embodiment of the cold that has long held the land in its grip. The creature's body moves in waves, undulating as it rises from the water. It is massive, its long tail trailing behind it like the tail of a serpent, its head raised high above the ground. The eyes of the beast are the most striking feature. They burn like fire, glowing bright and hot against the icy landscape, and when they meet your gaze, they seem to pierce through to your very soul. The Heishui Beast is not merely a creature of size or strength. Its true power lies in its control over the forces of nature. It is a creature that bends the very weather to its will, manipulating the air, the snow, and the ice with terrifying ease. When it rises, the world around it transforms. The snow falls harder, faster, and more densely, as if the heavens themselves have opened to unleash the full fury of winter. The air grows colder still, colder than anything humanly imaginable. The villagers speak of how the cold becomes unbearable, like something that claws at your very flesh, seeping deep into your bones. The chill reaches places no warmth can touch, and even the bravest men, wrapped in the heaviest furs, can feel it cut through them like a blade. As the snow falls in torrents, the Heishui Beast does not merely watch, it guides the storm. It moves through the frozen landscape with grace and power, shifting the snow with a wave of its body. The winds howl at its command, roaring through the trees and across the river. The fog rolls in, thick and impenetrable, cloaking everything in a white veil. The world is reduced to a haze, a place where sight and sound are swallowed by the oppressive weather. The beast has the ability to make the very ground beneath your feet turn treacherous. The ice that once seemed solid is no longer stable, and the snow piles higher with each passing moment, burying the land in an endless blanket of white. It is said that during the height of the beast's power, time itself seems to slow. The days stretch on and the nights last forever. The cold becomes your only companion, and the storm is your only reality. It's not just the weather that makes the Heishui Beast so terrifying. It is the feeling of helplessness that accompanies its presence. There is no escape from the storm it brings, no shelter from the icy winds that cut through the thickest walls. The villagers speak of how, even in their warm homes, they can feel the bite of the cold pressing in. They can hear the howl of the wind outside, and it feels as though the beast is watching them, waiting for them to venture out into its domain. For some, the terror of the Heishui Beast is not just in its power, but in its mysterious nature. No one truly understands what the creature seeks, or why it emerges only during the coldest winters. Is it a guardian of the river, punishing those who trespass? Or is it an ancient force of nature, a being who exists to remind humanity of the earth's power over them? No one knows for sure. But what is clear is that the Heishui Beast is not a creature to be trifled with. It does not come to seek revenge or to fulfill a need. It simply is. It is the winter, the cold, the very force of nature that has shaped this land for centuries. When the Heishui Beast rises from the frozen depths, it is a reminder that the world is not as tame as we believe, and that nature holds the ultimate power. The legend of the Heishui Beast endures, whispered from generation to generation. The villagers who have lived through countless winters pass down the story as a warning to those who come after them. They know that the beast is real, that it is part of the very fabric of their existence. The storm it brings, the cold it commands, these are not just natural phenomena, but a reminder of the world's untamed ancient power. Each winter, when the air grows sharp and the snow begins to fall, the people of Heilongjiang look to the sky and the river with a sense of both fear and respect. They know that the Heishui Beast could return at any moment, that the storm could rise up again. But even as they prepare, they cannot help but feel a sense of awe. For in the presence of such a creature, they are reminded of the beauty and terror that nature holds, a beauty that is as ancient as the river itself, as powerful as the beast that calls it home. And so, the Heishui Beast continues to rise, a timeless figure in the heart of winter. Its legend will live on, whispered by the wind, carried through the snow, and etched into the memory of all who have felt its icy touch. The Heishui Beast is not merely a creature, it is winter itself, both a curse and a blessing, a force that reminds humanity of its place in the vast, cold world. The Heishui Beast, when it stirs from its slumber beneath the frozen surface, does not simply shift the landscape, it transforms it. The world around it warps and bends, as though the laws of nature themselves become malleable under the weight of its immense presence. The land trembles, the river churns beneath the ice, and the air grows impossibly heavy, thick with a sense of something ancient, something powerful. As it moves, the Heishui Beast body coils through the landscape, its serpentine form undulating with slow, deliberate grace. The ice beneath its weight creaks and groans, buckling under its immense power. Every inch of its body appears to be made from the very essence of the river itself, glittering, crystalline scales that shimmer like shards of broken glass. These scales are as sharp and cold as the ice on the river, and they catch the light of the moon, creating an eerie glow that lights up the darkness in unsettling bursts. Each movement of the creature sends shockwaves through the frozen land, cracking the ice and creating ripples in the snow that radiate outward like the ripples of a stone cast into a still pond. As you watch the Heishui Beast rise from the depths, you can feel the very ground beneath your feet shift, as if the earth itself is trying to avoid its massive form. The creature's presence brings an oppressive weight to the air, as though every molecule of oxygen is somehow pulled towards it, leaving you gasping for breath. The cold becomes sharper, more insistent, and it cuts through you with a precision that feels unnatural. The very atmosphere seems charged, thick with an energy that pulses like a heartbeat, an energy that echoes the beast's power. There is no sound when the Heishui Beast moves, at least not a sound that a human ear can comprehend. The beast's movement is marked only by the faintest whispers of shifting ice, the groaning of the river beneath it, and the subtle tremors that run through the landscape. Yet, despite the silence, you feel its presence in every fiber of your being. It is as if the creature is both everywhere and nowhere at once, a presence that permeates the land and fills the space between breaths. You can feel its power, its ancient essence, in the very air you inhale. And then there are the eyes, those haunting, burning eyes. They glow with a fire that seems to come from the depths of the earth itself, a fire that is as old as the river and as cold as the winter night. The first time you lock eyes with the Heishui Beast, you feel the weight of it deep in your soul. It is as if the creature can see straight through you, its gaze stripping away everything until you are nothing more than a fleeting, insignificant speck in its vast, icy world. The eyes seem to pierce through the darkness, cutting through the thick fog that wraps around the river and the land like a suffocating shroud. Those eyes are twin beacons in the night, burning with an intensity that leaves you paralyzed with fear. When you gaze into them, it is as though the very chill of the river seeps into your soul, freezing your heart, your mind, and your very will. It is said that once you look into the Heishui Beast's eyes, you cannot look away, not out of fascination, but out of a terror that roots you to the spot, an overwhelming force that leaves you helpless and exposed. Even the bravest of men, those who have spent their entire lives in the frozen wilds of Heilongjiang, know that there is no fighting the Heishui Beast. There is no running, no hiding, for the beast's power is as inevitable as the cold itself. It does not need to chase its prey. It moves with a deliberate grace, undisturbed by the wind or the snow, as if the very weather bends to its will. The Heishui Beast does not rush. Its movements are calculated, as though it is savoring the world around it, tasting the air, feeling the earth tremble beneath its coils. Each shift of its body sends ripples through the snow, and each moment of its existence feels like the unfolding of some ancient ritual, one that has been repeated for centuries, for millennia. The ice cracks and groans beneath its weight, but it is not shattered, no. The ice is simply altered, bent to the creature's power. The ice that once seemed solid and unyielding now shifts like liquid beneath the beast's form. The frozen river, once a barrier between land and water, becomes an extension of the creature's will, an obedient servant that shifts with every movement. As the Heishui Beast moves forward, the river itself seems to follow its every command. The snow that covers the land is swept aside in its wake, forming hills and valleys, creating paths that were never there before. The world seems to bend with the beast's presence, and reality itself becomes fluid, subject to the whims of the creature's ancient power. Though the Heishui Beast is a creature of immense power, it does not bring chaos or destruction for the sake of it. Instead, it brings a slow, inexorable transformation, one that is more terrifying because it is so inevitable. The landscape does not crack apart in an instant. It is a gradual, creeping process, like the slow thawing of a frozen river. Except here the transformation is not to warmth, but to an even deeper, more intense cold. The ice does not shatter in violent explosions. Instead, it cracks slowly, gently, almost as if the land itself is being reformed. The cracks spread, widening until the frozen surface is marked with jagged edges, as though a great force beneath is slowly reshaping the world. It is not destruction in the traditional sense. It is a subtle, steady breaking down of the familiar, a shift that leaves behind a landscape that is no longer recognizable. The river, the trees, the hills, they are all changed by the beast. The world is remade in its image, and the familiar order is replaced with something alien, something that is ruled by the ice and the snow. But the Heishui Beast does not need to destroy everything. It leaves behind an eerie calm, a feeling of emptiness, as if the land itself is holding its breath in awe of the creature's power. The terror it inspires is not one of chaos, but of inevitability. It is a reminder that nature is not a force that can be controlled or tamed. It is something that can be bent to the will of ancient forces, forces that have existed long before humanity and will continue to exist long after it is gone. The Heishui Beast does not care for the lives of men. It does not come to take vengeance, nor does it come to reward those who respect the land. It simply is. It is the cold, the ice, the snow, the unrelenting power of nature that continues to shape the world even as humanity struggles to tame it. The villagers speak of the Heishui Beast not as a villain, but as a force beyond understanding. They know that it is not something they can fight or defeat. They cannot reason with it, and they cannot escape it. When it comes, they must endure it. For there is no place for fear in a world ruled by forces far older and more powerful than anything they can imagine. In the end, the Heishui Beast is not just a creature, it is a part of the land, a part of the river, and a part of the winter that grips the heart of Heilongjiang. It rises from the depths when the cold is at its peak, and it leaves only when the river begins to thaw and the warmth of spring returns. The beast is not defeated, it merely recedes, sinking back into the river, waiting for the next winter when it will rise again. And so the cycle continues, with the Heishui Beast ever present, ever waiting, a reminder that in this world there are forces far greater than the human heart can comprehend, forces that cannot be controlled, but only respected. And as long as the cold winter continues to sweep over Heilongjiang, the legend of the Heishui Beast will remain a whisper on the wind, a shadow beneath the ice, a burning pair of eyes that will always watch, always wait. The Heishui Beast is not merely a creature of physical power. It wields an ancient force over nature itself. When it rises from the frozen river, it brings with it the full might of winter, as though the very weather itself answers to its will. The temperature drops, the winds pick up, and the snow falls heavier than ever before. The world becomes a haze of white, as if nature has closed its eyes, leaving nothing but an endless expanse of frost and fog. It can create dense fog so thick that you can barely see your hand in front of your face. It spreads like a blanket, wrapping the world in a cold embrace, obscuring everything in darkness. The snow continues to fall relentlessly, driven by winds that seem to come from nowhere. The once familiar landscape becomes unrecognizable, swallowed up by the white fury of the storm. In these moments, it is as if the Heishui Beast has brought the very essence of winter to life. It is the master of the snow, the fog, and the cold, bending the world around it to its will. The river, the air, the land, all of it, becomes part of the beast's domain, and no one is safe from the icy grip of its power. The beast does not just exist in the world. It shapes it, twists it, and redefines what is possible. When the Heishui Beast rises from the frozen depths of the river, the world around it trembles, not just in awe, but in terror. The beast is not merely a creature, it is a force, a harbinger of winter's unyielding grip. Its power goes beyond the physical realm, extending into the very fabric of nature itself, as if the cold that blankets the land is summoned by its will, a mere reflection of its ancient dominion over the elements. As the creature emerges from beneath the ice, the world becomes a living nightmare. The temperature plummets faster than human senses can comprehend. The chill becomes so intense that even the bravest souls, cloaked in layers of thick furs, feel the bite of it in their bones. The cold no longer feels like a natural phenomenon. It becomes something alive, something sentient, like the breath of the Heishui Beast itself. Cold and unforgiving, the winds stir, not as a gentle breeze, but as an angry howl that sweeps across the land, bending trees and tearing at roofs. The once quiet river, now under the beast's influence, churns and roars, its surface heaving as if it, too, is under the control of the mighty creature. The air becomes thick with the weight of the storm. The snow, which had previously been a soft blanket of white, begins to fall in thick, relentless sheets. It is no longer a gentle snowfall. It is a fury, a driving force that blurs the line between sky and earth. The snow does not fall in single flakes, but in great torrents, carried by the howling winds, turning the world into a swirling mass of white chaos. What was once a familiar landscape, houses, trees, and paths, becomes unrecognizable, consumed by the storm. The landscape vanishes, and in its place, there is only the blinding, all-encompassing white, a world swallowed by winter itself. It is in these moments, as the storm rages and the winds tear through the trees, that the true power of the Heishui Beast is revealed. It is not merely controlling the weather. It is bending nature to its will, reshaping the world in a way that defies understanding. The snow becomes its servant, the fog its veil, and the cold becomes a weapon, one that twists and reshapes the world, leaving nothing untouched by its grasp. As the Heishui Beast moves, so too does the landscape. The world becomes fluid, shifting under the beast's command. The river that once flowed peacefully beneath the ice now cracks open in places, and the water beneath the surface churns violently, its calmness shattered by the beast's presence. The ice shifts and warps, stretching and contracting as though the very earth beneath it is being manipulated. The snow piles higher, accumulating in strange mounds, pushing against houses, trees, and rocks. until it is as if the land itself has been buried under a thick, impenetrable shroud. It is a transformation of the most violent kind. The snow and ice do not simply cover the land, they consume it. The very ground seems to be reshaped, as though the Heishui Beast has decided that the world is not worthy of remaining as it once was. Trees bend and break under the weight of the snow, their once proud trunks now bent low to the ground, as if in submission to the beast. The fields, the roads, the homes, everything becomes part of the storm, swept into its chaotic dance. The fog, thick and impenetrable, envelops everything in darkness. The world becomes a place of confusion, where even those who know the land well are unable to find their bearings. The fog creeps into every corner, curling around houses, swallowing paths, and obliterating landmarks. It is as if the Heishui Beast has not only taken control of the weather, but has also erased the very shape of the world. The horizon disappears, and the sky becomes one with the snow, blending into an endless expanse of white. The fog, thick and suffocating, makes it impossible to see beyond your own outstretched hand, leaving you lost in a world where the very air you breathe feels heavy with the weight of the storm. The world is no longer a place of familiarity. It has become something alien, something that bends and shifts under the will of the Heishui Beast. The laws of nature no longer seem to apply. The snow falls at impossible angles, driven by winds that seem to have no origin, and the temperature drops to levels that should not be survivable. It is a world where the very ground beneath your feet feels unstable, where each step you take might be your last as you struggle to find purchase in the shifting snow and ice. The Heishui Beast's power is not merely destructive, it is transformative. It does not simply lay waste to the world around it. It reshapes it, redefines it, and forces those who live within its domain to confront the raw, untamed force of nature. It is as if the beast is reminding the world that no matter how much humanity has built, how much civilization has advanced, nature remains the ultimate power. When the Heishui Beast rises, it brings with it a reminder that the land, the river, and the very earth beneath your feet can be remade in an instant. It can take what you know, what you trust, and turn it into something unrecognizable, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. But in this destruction, there is also creation. The storm that the Heishui Beast brings is not merely an ending, it is a beginning. As the ice spreads across the land, as the snow piles higher and higher, a new world begins to form. It is a world that is cold, unforgiving, and harsh, but it is also beautiful in its purity. The snow, untouched by human hands, creates a landscape of untouched white, a clean slate that seems to hold infinite possibilities. The fog, though disorienting and terrifying, brings with it a sense of mystery, an air of the unknown that fills the world with a strange sense of wonder. In this world reborn in ice and snow, the Heishui Beast reigns supreme. It is both the destroyer and the creator, the force that shapes the land with its power, remaking the world in its own image. The storm it brings, the winds it controls, and the cold it commands, all of these are expressions of its dominance over the world. It is not merely a creature of destruction, it is a reminder of the forces that lie beyond human comprehension, forces that shape the world in ways that are beyond our understanding. The Heishui Beast's influence does not end when the storm subsides. Its mark remains on the land long after it has vanished. For the world it leaves behind is forever altered. The river, once frozen solid, begins to thaw, but the ice never fully disappears. The snow, though it may eventually melt, leaves behind a layer of frost that clings to the earth, a reminder of the beast's visit. The trees, though they may eventually grow back, will carry the scars of the storm in the gnarled branches that now rise from the earth. Even the air, once so crisp and clear, is never quite the same. The fog lingers in the corners of the land, a quiet presence that cannot be banished, always waiting for the next time the Heishui Beast will return. The winds, though they may die down, continue to whisper, carrying with them the memory of the storm, the memory of the beast's power. The people who live in Heilongjiang know this all too well. They know that the Heishui Beast will return, that the storm will come again, and that the land will be remade in the creature's image once more. But they also know that in this destruction there is rebirth. In the terror there is beauty. And in the raw, unyielding power of the Heishui Beast, there is a reminder that nature is not something to be controlled, but something to be respected, feared, and revered. For as long as the river runs cold, and the winter winds howl across the land, the Heishui Beast will remain a silent force, shaping the world in ways that only it understands. It is the master of winter, the controller of ice and snow, and the keeper of nature's deepest, most ancient secrets. And when it rises, the world will feel the weight of its power once more. When the Heishui Beast appears, the world around you changes. It is as though the very fabric of reality is warped, twisted into something unfamiliar and terrifying. The darkness deepens, the snow piles higher, and the cold sinks deeper into your bones. You can feel the weight of the world pressing down, as though the very land itself is holding its breath, waiting for the beast to claim it. It is not just the weather that changes when the Heishui Beast comes. There is a stillness in the air, an unnatural silence that descends over everything. The usual sounds of the forest, the rustling of leaves, the calls of animals are swallowed by the all-encompassing cold. The only sound that remains is the howling wind and the faint crackle of ice as the beast moves beneath the surface of the river. In these moments, it feels as if the Heishui Beast has taken control of the very nature of winter itself. It is not just a force of nature, it is the embodiment of winter's darkest, most powerful aspects. It is the cold you cannot escape, the snow that will never stop falling, the fog that will never lift. And in the heart of it all stands the Heishui Beast, watching, waiting, its fiery eyes burning through the darkness. This is not a creature to be taken lightly. It is a reminder that there are forces in the world far older and more powerful than anything humans can comprehend. When the Heishui Beast rises from the river, it is as if the very essence of winter itself is unleashed, and no one is immune to its power. As the Heishui Beast rises from the depths of the frozen river, the very earth beneath your feet seems to shift, as if the land itself is bracing for its arrival. The ice creaks, groans, and cracks, shattering with a sound so deep and reverberating it feels like the river's soul is being torn apart. The snow that once gently dusted the ground now piles up relentlessly, the winds pushing it in every direction, swallowing the world in a blinding white haze. The cold is no longer just an inconvenience. It becomes a presence, pressing in from all sides, suffocating, relentless. The forest around you is silent, not even the rustling of trees to be heard. The animals that usually roam these woods have long since retreated, sensing the presence of something far more dangerous than any predator. The Heishui Beast commands the very air itself, muting the usual symphony of nature. All that remains is the sound of the howling wind, which now feels like a living, breathing entity, and the eerie crackling of the ice as the beast moves beneath the surface. It is a sound that reverberates in your chest, a reminder of the power hidden just below the ice, an ancient force that is stirring, waking, and slowly coming to life. When the Heishui Beast rises, it brings with it the full force of winter's might, an unyielding, untamable fury. The wind, once a gentle breeze, picks up with a savage intensity. It roars across the land, howling through the trees and ripping through the snow. It bends the branches of the tallest pines, shaking them like fragile twigs. The snow that falls is no longer soft and delicate, but is driven by the winds in sharp, biting flakes that sting the skin and blind the eyes. The temperature drops exponentially as the beast makes its presence known. It is no longer a matter of simply being cold. It is a freezing, agonizing chill that seems to seep into your very bones. Even the bravest of souls, wrapped in layers of thick furs and wool, cannot escape the gnawing frost that digs deeper with each breath. The cold becomes a living thing, alive with an almost predatory hunger, seeking out the warmth within you and stealing it away until nothing but numbness remains. The snow falls heavier than ever before, blanketing the world in an endless, oppressive sea of white. The once familiar landscape of trees, hills, and paths is swallowed up, reduced to a featureless wasteland. The horizon vanishes, and what was once visible now fades into the whiteness. It is a world consumed by the Heishui Beast's power, a world in which nothing escapes its reach. And all the while, through the endless snow and darkness, the creature watches, its fiery eyes cutting through the blinding storm. It is as if the beast sees everything, knows everything, waiting patiently for the world to bend to its will. As the Heishui Beast moves through the land, it is not just a creature of destruction, it is the very embodiment of winter itself. The snow does not merely fall, it is driven by the beast's will, falling in great sheets, piling higher and higher with each passing moment. The fog that rises is not just a mist, it is a thick, impenetrable wall of white, closing in around you, swallowing up everything in its path. It is as if the very nature of winter has been summoned by the beast, as though it has the power to make the world as cold and dark as it desires, bending it to its ancient, unstoppable will. The Heishui Beast is not bound by the rules of the natural world. It is not merely a part of nature, it is the very force that governs it, a creature that has existed since time immemorial. The beast does not care for the lives of men, women, or animals. It does not seek to destroy for the sake of destruction. Instead, it is a force that reminds the world of its frailty, its insignificance in the face of nature's raw power. It is a reminder that there are forces far greater than human understanding, forces that can bend the very elements to their will. When the Heishui Beast rises, the world changes. It becomes something unrecognizable, something terrifying, something that cannot be tamed or controlled. It is not a creature to be fought or resisted, it is a force to be endured. Those who live in the shadow of the river understand this all too well. They know that when the Heishui Beast comes, there is no escaping it. The snow will fall, the winds will howl, and the cold will sink deep into their bones. They know that they are at the mercy of the beast, and all they can do is wait until it decides to move on. But the Heishui Beast does not stay forever. After it has passed through, leaving the land altered in its wake, the storm slowly begins to subside. The winds, once fierce and unrelenting, die down. The snow, which had fallen in such furious sheets, begins to slow, tapering off into gentle flurries that seem almost harmless in comparison to the fury they once carried. The air, once filled with the biting cold, begins to feel less oppressive, though the chill lingers, as if the land itself is still recovering from the beast's touch. The fog, too, begins to dissipate, though it leaves behind a lingering haze. The landscape, once lost to the storm, is now slowly revealed again, though it is no longer the same. The trees are bent and broken, their branches weighed down by the snow, and the ground is covered in a thick layer of ice, making every step treacherous. The river, which had been consumed by the beast, now lies still, its surface frozen in unnatural shapes, as if the very water has been transformed by the creature's passing. The world is silent now, quieter than it has ever been. The wind has stopped howling, the snow has stopped falling, and the air is still. The Heishui Beast has moved on, retreating back into the river from which it came, leaving the land to recover in its wake. But even in the silence, there is a lingering presence, a sense that the Heishui Beast is not truly gone. It may have disappeared into the depths of the frozen river, but its power remains, its influence etched into the landscape, in the frozen trees, the broken earth, and the still, silent waters. It is said that when the Heishui Beast leaves, it does not leave behind peace, it leaves behind a deep, bone-chilling reminder of its presence. The villagers, though they continue their lives, know that the beast could return at any moment. They know that winter, in all its terrible beauty, is never truly gone. As long as the river runs cold and the winds howl through the trees, the Heishui Beast will remain, watching, waiting, a force of nature that is never fully tamed, never fully understood. The legend of the Heishui Beast continues to haunt the people of Heilongjiang. The storm that it brings, the ice that it commands, the cold that it spreads, these are not just events of the past, but reminders of the untamed power of nature. Each year, as the winter sets in and the cold begins to bite, the villagers look to the river with a sense of awe and fear. They know that the Heishui Beast may rise again, that the snow may fall harder, the winds may howl louder, and the cold may reach even deeper than before. But there is also a strange reverence in their eyes. For despite the terror that the Heishui Beast brings, they know that it is a part of the world they live in, a reminder that nature is both beautiful and terrifying, powerful and unpredictable. They know that the Heishui Beast is not a creature to be feared or fought, but one to be respected, for it represents the ancient forces that have shaped this land since time immemorial. And so, the legend of the Heishui Beast endures, carried through the generations, passed down in whispered tales, and remembered in the very fabric of the land itself. Each winter, when the snow falls thick and the wind picks up, the villagers remember the beast, watching from the river's edge, waiting for the day it will rise again. As the winter deepens, a change begins to take root in the village. At first, it is subtle, a slight shift in the wind, a whisper in the air that makes the trees tremble a little more than usual. The villagers, long accustomed to the biting cold of Heilongjiang winters, noticed the air growing sharper, more biting. The wind picks up with greater intensity, sweeping through the streets with a force that feels unnatural. At times, the cold seems to cut right through the thickest furs, making even the bravest of souls huddle closer to their hearths. But the oddity doesn't end with the wind. Strange, thick snowfalls begin to occur. One moment, the sky is clear, and the next, the snow falls in dense, suffocating sheets. The snow isn't the soft, gentle variety that blankets the land in white. It is hard and icy, carried by winds that seem to come from nowhere, falling in heavy, almost violent torrents. And with the snow, the fog begins to roll in, creeping across the land like a living entity, swallowing the village whole, turning everything into an indistinguishable haze of white. The villagers, though used to winter's harshness, start to feel a growing unease. The world around them seems to be shifting, becoming something darker, something harder to define. The air is colder than it's ever been, and the winds howl louder than usual. For those who live by the river, the eerie sensation is even stronger. Something about the river itself feels different, as if it too is reacting to the storms above. As the days pass, the strange weather only intensifies. The snow becomes thicker, the fog denser, and the winds more erratic. The villagers are no strangers to harsh winters, but this feels different. The cold bites with an unnatural sharpness, as if the world itself has turned against them. Even the most seasoned hunters, who have spent their entire lives braving the winters of Heilongjiang, begin to talk in hushed tones, sensing that something is not quite right. The old ones, those who have lived through countless winters, begin to eye the river with growing suspicion, as if it too has become a part of the storm. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon and darkness descends with a chill, the wind grows quiet. It's an eerie silence, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. The usual sounds of the forest, the rustling of the trees, the distant calls of wildlife are suddenly absent. Instead, there is an overwhelming stillness, as if the very world is holding its breath. The villagers, huddled together inside their homes, glance nervously at one another. The wind, which had been howling relentlessly, now stirs in strange, unnerving gusts, as though the air itself is restless, disturbed by something unseen. It is then that the first truly unsettling thing happens. The river begins to groan. The sound is low at first, almost imperceptible, like the earth shifting beneath your feet. But soon it grows louder, a deep, rumbling sound that echoes across the village. It is as though the river itself is alive, groaning and shifting beneath the thick layers of ice. The villagers exchange uneasy glances, their eyes drawn to the frozen river. The sound, so foreign and unnatural, reverberates through the air, sending a ripple of fear through the hearts of even the bravest among them. At first, they chalk it up to the shifting ice, the result of the deepening cold. But the sound persists, rising in pitch and intensity, as if something beneath the ice is stirring. The groaning seems to come in waves, sometimes deep and rumbling, other times sharp and almost pained. It is a sound that does not belong to the world of men, but to something far older, something that has been waiting for its moment to emerge. That night, as the villagers sit around their hearths, the youngest among them ask in hushed voices what could be causing such noises. Their parents look away, their faces drawn and pale, unwilling to speak of the old legends. The stories whispered around the fire that spoke of creatures lurking beneath the ice, creatures that only awoke in the coldest, most unforgiving winters. But it isn't just the river's groaning that unsettles the villagers. The storm continues to rage, but now there is something else. The fog, which had started as a thin mist, begins to thicken, swirling and creeping along the ground like a living thing. The air becomes heavy, saturated with the weight of something ancient and powerful. It is as if the land itself is shifting, bending to the will of something beyond comprehension. The snow falls relentlessly, driven by winds that seem to be guided by some unseen force. The snow is no longer soft, but heavy, ice-laden and brutal, driven by the cold that seems to tear through every fiber of life. At the edge of the river, the fog grows so thick that it becomes nearly impossible to see more than a few feet in front of you. The villagers, unable to ignore the rising dread, start to gather together in small groups, speaking in hushed tones about the strange occurrences. Their voices tremble with fear as they share the ancient stories of the Heishui Beast, the creature that, according to legend, rises from the river every few generations, bringing with it the full force of winter's fury. As the snow continues to fall and the fog thickens, a few of the bravest men decide to investigate. Armed with torches and lanterns, they venture out into the night, their footsteps muffled by the thickening snow. The village behind them is quiet, the wind still, as if the land itself is waiting. The further they walk toward the river, the thicker the fog becomes, and the more oppressive the air feels. It is as though they are stepping into another world, a world where reality itself is beginning to unravel. One of the men, the eldest and most experienced of the group, leads the way, his lantern casting eerie shadows on the trees as they approach the river. He stops suddenly, his breath coming in short gasps as he surveys the landscape. His face pales, and the other men stop behind him, following his gaze toward the river. The surface of the river is frozen, but the ice seems to be shifting, cracking and groaning as if it were alive. Deep cracks appear, jagged and uneven, spreading like veins across the ice. The sound of the ice groaning is now unmistakable, louder and more ominous. And then, through the thick fog, they see it a shadow, moving beneath the ice, something massive and powerful, just out of reach. The men stand frozen in place, their breaths shallow as they stare into the mist, unable to comprehend what they are seeing. The shadow shifts beneath the ice, moving with a strange, undulating grace, as if it is alive and aware of their presence. A cold wind picks up, howling through the trees, and for a moment it feels as if the very air is alive with the weight of something ancient, something terrifying. The eldest villager takes a step back, his face drawn with fear. "It's real," he whispers, barely audible over the wind. "The Heishui Beast. It has returned." The others turn to look at him, their faces pale, their minds racing. They have heard the stories, of course, but they never believed them legends of a creature so ancient and powerful that it could control the very elements. But now, standing at the edge of the river, they can feel it. The ice is alive, the air is alive, and something beneath the frozen surface is awakening. A chill runs through the group as they step back, their hearts pounding in their chests. They turn to leave, but the sound of cracking ice behind them makes them pause. The river is stirring, groaning under the weight of something far greater than anything they've ever known. The Heishui Beast has awoken. The village will never be the same. One night, the atmosphere grows even more oppressive. The wind howls louder than it has before, rattling the windows and making the village feel as though it is at the mercy of the elements. A villager who lives near the river lies awake in bed, the cold creeping through the cracks in the walls and the howl of the wind keeping sleep at bay. He listens to the sounds outside, every gust of wind, every creak of the trees, every whisper of the snow. But then, in the midst of the storm, he hears something else. At first, it's a distant noise, something that sounds like a low groan or a rumble. It's not like any sound the wind makes, it's deeper, almost as if the river itself is sighing in its sleep. The noise is faint, but it's there, persistent, echoing through the night. He listens intently, straining to hear it again. And as he does, the noise grows louder. It sounds almost like a low, mournful cry, or perhaps a groaning, like something massive is shifting beneath the ice. The wind picks up again, and the noise vanishes, swallowed by the howling gusts. But the noise returns, more clearly now, coming from the direction of the river. The villager, his curiosity piqued and his skepticism about the old tales starting to waver, decides to venture outside to investigate. Perhaps it's just the wind, or perhaps the river itself is simply making strange sounds beneath the ice. But something in his gut tells him that it is more than that. The hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as he grabs his cloak and heads out into the storm. The wind howls as the villager steps out into the night, its biting cold instantly sinking through his cloak and into his bones. He pulls the collar of his coat tighter around his neck, but it does little to block the relentless chill that seems to seep into his very marrow. The storm rages with an intensity he's never felt before, the snow whipping around him, stinging his face like sharp needles. The village, usually quiet and peaceful in the winter nights, is swallowed by the storm, and the world around him becomes a disorienting blur of white. The strange noise, the deep, mournful groan lingers in his mind, growing louder in his ears with every step he takes toward the river. At first, he had thought it was just the wind, the trees, or perhaps some animal seeking shelter from the cold. But now, as he moves through the storm, he knows it's something else. The sound is different. It is too deep, too persistent to be anything ordinary. It resonates in a way that makes the hairs on the back of his neck stand tall, prickling with unease. As he draws nearer to the riverbank, the noise grows louder, now unmistakable in its eerie intensity. It sounds like a groan, deep and guttural, reverberating through the ground, as if something massive is shifting beneath the frozen surface. The villager's breath comes in quick bursts, each exhale fogging the air in front of him. The snow falls harder, the wind picking up speed, but despite the storm's fury, the sound of the groaning river cuts through it all, like a cry from the depths of the earth itself. He squints into the dense fog, trying to make out the river through the thick veil of white. The once familiar landscape is now unrecognizable. The trees and the houses are swallowed by the snowstorm, and even the road he knows so well is lost to the whirling storm. The only thing he can see clearly is the dark, looming shape of the river, its frozen surface blanketed by a thick layer of snow, the ice cracked and groaning as though it were alive. As he steps closer to the water's edge, the groaning intensifies, becoming almost unbearable. He pauses for a moment, his heart pounding, his instincts screaming at him to turn back. The legends, the stories his grandmother used to whisper about the Heishui Beast, the creature that would rise from the river when the storm grew fierce, when the ice was thickest, flashed through his mind. But he shakes off the thought, dismissing it as nothing more than old superstitions. But deep down, something stirs inside him. He can't ignore the feeling that something is wrong, that something is out there, beneath the ice, something waiting. He looks around, his eyes straining through the blinding storm. But there's nothing but the endless white of snow and fog. The villager's footsteps crunch in the snow as he edges closer to the river. The strange noise is now unmistakable, almost as if the very river itself is alive, groaning with an ancient, unwelcome force. The river's surface, normally a solid sheet of ice, is now cracked in places, the fractures running like veins through the frozen expanse. The cracks seem to be growing, creeping along the surface like the river itself is awakening from a deep slumber. He kneels, his breath shallow and rapid in the cold air, and peers closely at the ice. The cracks form strange, almost unnatural patterns, lines that are too deliberate, too precise to be the result of natural forces. They seem to be moving, shifting in a way that defies explanation. It is as if something beneath the ice is forcing the cracks to grow, as if something is pushing up from below, reaching for the surface. A cold shiver runs down the villager's spine as he stares at the cracks. The air around him feels heavier now, thicker, as though the very atmosphere is charged with an ancient power. The groaning noise rises again, louder than before, echoing through the frozen landscape. This time, it sounds almost like a growl, a low rumble that shakes the ground beneath him. His pulse quickens as the realization hits him. There is something down there, something beneath the ice, something alive. A sudden gust of wind knocks him off balance, sending a cloud of snow flying in all directions. He stands up quickly, heart racing, and his eyes instinctively dart to the river. He sees nothing, just the swirling fog and the shifting ice. But then, in the thick of the mist, he catches a glimpse of something large moving beneath the ice, a dark shape that slithers and undulates like a serpent. It moves with eerie grace, its form rippling through the frozen surface, as if the very ice cannot hold it back. The villager stumbles backward, his breath catching in his throat. He blinks, unsure if what he saw was real or just a trick of the storm. He squints again, trying to make sense of the shadow he thought he saw. But the ice remains still, save for the deep cracks and the slow, groaning rumble that fills the air. His heart pounds in his chest as he stands frozen, unable to move. The wind howls in his ears, drowning out every other sound. The storm rages, but the river's groaning and the rumbling beneath the ice continue to grow louder. The villager's old stories flash in his mind once more, the legends of the Heishui Beast, a creature so ancient that it could control the river, the ice, and the very cold of winter itself. It's then that the ice cracks again, a loud snap that echoes through the air like the sound of something immense breaking free. A deep, guttural growl rises from below, and the villager's heart nearly stops. His feet feel as though they are rooted to the ground, the overwhelming sense of dread creeping up his spine. The ice begins to split apart in front of him, and a dark shape rises from beneath the surface. The Heishui Beast. There is no other way to describe it. What he thought was just a legend is now very real, standing before him in the storm's fury. Its massive form is a serpent-like creature, its scales shimmering like ice, glowing with an eerie light that cuts through the swirling snow. Its eyes burn with a fiery intensity, gleaming from the depths of the river as it rises, its long body coiling beneath the surface. The beast's presence is overwhelming, and the air around it grows colder, sharper, as if the very essence of winter has come alive in front of him. The villager stumbles back, his mouth dry, his heart racing. He can hardly believe what he is seeing. But the Heishui Beast does not give him time to doubt it. It moves, slow and deliberate, sending the ice cracking further, its massive body undulating beneath the river's surface, as if the very water and ice are at its command. In that moment, all the skepticism he once held slips away. The stories, the legends, everything his elders had whispered around the hearth about the Heishui Beast was true. And now, standing face to face with it, he knows that nothing in this world is safe from its power. The villager's instincts scream at him to run, to flee back to the safety of his home, but his legs feel like lead, unable to move. The wind howls, the snow whips around him, and the river groans beneath his feet. The Heishui Beast's presence is all-encompassing, like a dark cloud settling over him, pressing in from all sides. The creature's eyes are locked onto him now, its gaze sharp and intense, as if it is aware of his every thought, his every breath. He finally breaks from his trance, his body screaming with fear, and he turns to flee. The cold bites at his skin, and the snow seems to fall faster, heavier. But all he can hear is the sound of his own footsteps, pounding through the snow, growing more desperate as he races away from the riverbank. He doesn't dare look back, but even as he runs, the rumble of the river, the groaning of the ice, and the echo of the beast's growl continue to chase him. A reminder that the Heishui Beast is not something that can be escaped, not for long. The village may have heard the stories, but now they are living it. The beast is awake, and its power has returned. The village lies cloaked in an eerie silence, the storm outside raving with a fury that rattles every window and sends the trees shaking in the wind. It is a night like no other. The fog that has rolled in thickens, curling and twisting like living tendrils, swallowing up everything in its path. The world around you is swallowed in the cold and the white haze, reducing everything to shadow and fog. The familiar paths, the homes of the villagers, are now lost beneath the swirling mass of snow and mist. The very air feels alive, charged with an unnatural energy that presses down on the land like an invisible weight. The villagers stand together, gathered near the village square, looking towards the river. There's a tension in the air, thick with the weight of unspoken fear. They have heard the rumors, felt the tremors in the land, and now, standing in the midst of the storm, they know the legends are not just stories, they are warnings. The Heishui Beast has returned, and it is not a creature to be trifled with. The villagers clutch their lanterns tightly, the light barely cutting through the dense fog. Their breaths hang in the air like mist, and each one knows that they are standing on the edge of something far older and far more dangerous than anything they've encountered before. The sounds of the storm are drowned out by a low, guttural rumble coming from the river, a noise so deep it vibrates in your bones. You can feel it in the air, the tension, the fear, the anticipation of what is to come. The villagers exchange uneasy glances, their faces pale, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. The storm rages around them, the wind shrieking through the trees, the snow falling in thick, suffocating sheets. But it is not the storm that has them on edge, it is the sound. The deep, rumbling growl emanating from the river, reverberating through the earth like a warning, a challenge from something ancient and powerful. The sound grows louder, and the earth seems to tremble with it. The ground beneath their feet shakes faintly, as if something immense is stirring below the frozen river. The ice, usually still and silent, now groans and cracks, sending shivers through the village. The villagers clutch their lanterns tighter, their light flickering weakly in the thickening fog, casting eerie shadows across the snow-covered ground. The wind whips past them, a chilling reminder of the power that stirs in the river, but none of them dare to move. A man steps forward, his face hardened with years of experience. He is one of the elders, a man whose voice has carried the weight of many winters. But now, his voice quivers with an unspoken terror. "It's coming," he whispers, barely audible over the wind. His voice is like a thread, fragile and fragile, hanging in the air. And the villagers instinctively move closer together, forming a tight circle, their eyes fixed on the direction of the river. As the wind howls louder, drowning out all other sound, the rumble from the river becomes clearer, more distinct. It is no longer just the river groaning under the weight of the ice. It is something far deeper, far older, a sound that feels like the earth itself is shifting, like the world is being reshaped by a force that has lain dormant for centuries. And then, as if summoned by the very storm itself, the beast makes its presence known. From the depths of the river, from beneath the thick, frozen surface, something stirs. The ice cracks violently, sending shards of frozen water flying through the air, like shards of a broken mirror. A low growl reverberates from the river, its sound like the earth's own heartbeat, heavy and ominous. The villagers gasp, stepping back instinctively, their hearts pounding in unison. From the fractured ice, a form begins to emerge, large and undulating, rising slowly but with terrifying grace. The Heishui Beast. Its serpentine body coils and unfurls as it slithers onto the ice, the glistening scales covering its massive form catching the weak light of the lanterns. The fog parts around it, as if bowing to its ancient power. Its fiery eyes, burning like molten lava, glow through the dense fog, cutting through the storm like twin beacons. They fixate on the villagers, locking onto them with an intensity that freezes their hearts. For a moment, all is silent. The wind has died down, the storm stills, and the world holds its breath. The villagers are paralyzed, too terrified to move, caught between the legend they've heard their entire lives and the terrifying reality before them. The Heishui Beast stands tall, its body rippling with strength as it surveys the village, its fiery eyes burning through the cold night. The air is heavy with tension, thick with the weight of the moment. You can feel it. This is no ordinary creature, no simple beast. This is something far more ancient, something born from the river itself, something that bends nature to its will. The sound of its breath is like the howl of the wind, deep and heavy, a sound that resonates in your chest. It fills the air, making the very atmosphere feel alive, as if the beast itself has claimed this world as its own. The villagers stand frozen in place, unable to look away from the glowing eyes of the creature. The cold, which had already been unbearable, deepens, pressing down on them like a vice, chilling them to their very core. The Heishui Beast, with a deliberate slowness, turns its head, its massive body undulating in the mist as it moves closer, gliding across the ice with an unsettling grace. The ice cracks and groans under its weight, sending ripples through the frozen surface of the river. Each movement sends a tremor through the land, as if the world itself is shaking under the power of the creature. No one dares to breathe, let alone speak. The fear that grips them is so overwhelming that it paralyzes their very thoughts. In the face of such power, such an ancient force, all their lives seem insignificant, fragile, like dust in the wind. The Heishui Beast is not just a creature, it is a force of nature, a reminder that there are things far older and more powerful than any man can ever understand. And then, just as the creature seems to loom directly over them, the air shifts again. The temperature drops even further, and the wind begins to howl once more. But this time, it feels different. It feels like the beast is calling, its roar joining the storm, commanding the winds and the snow to obey. The villagers shudder, their faces pale with terror, and they know deep in their hearts that this is no longer a storm. This is the Heishui Beast. With a final deafening roar, the creature coils its body into the night, its fiery eyes blazing through the fog as it rises higher, pushing the air and snow aside. The villagers can only watch, too fearful to move, as the beast moves through the storm, its power undeniable, its presence a reminder that the legends were not just stories, they were a prophecy. The river, usually a quiet and still entity in winter, begins to stir with unnatural movement. The ice that has been solid for weeks now cracks, groaning like a living thing under the pressure of something immense. It begins with a single, deep crack that echoes through the silence, and then more follow. The ground shakes beneath your feet as the beast begins to rise. It is as if the river is being torn open, its icy surface giving way to the form that has been waiting beneath it for so long. From the cracks in the ice, the Heishui Beast emerges. Its long serpentine body coils upward, covered in thick, glistening scales that shimmer in the dim light. The ice clings to it like frozen armor, its edges sharp and jagged, catching the light in a way that makes it appear almost otherworldly. The beast moves with an unnatural grace, its massive body sliding over the ice as if the land itself bends to its will. The very air around you seems to grow heavier as the creature rises, a suffocating weight that presses down on everything in its presence. But it is the beast's eyes that draw your attention. They burn with an unnatural fire, glowing in the darkness like twin orbs of molten lava. The fiery glow cuts through the fog and snow, illuminating the beast's massive form as it rises from the ice. The eyes pierce the fog, locking onto the villagers with a gaze so intense, so full of ancient power, that it feels as though the beast can see straight through you into your soul. The sight is enough to freeze the blood in your veins, and you feel as though you are no longer standing in the village, but instead standing at the mercy of a force far beyond your comprehension. The beast's presence is overwhelming. It is not just a creature of physical might, it is a living embodiment of the storm, the river, and the cold that has ruled these lands for centuries. Its movements are slow, deliberate, and calculated. The ground beneath it quakes with every shift of its body, and the ice beneath the creature seems to buckle and bend, struggling under the weight of something far greater than it was ever meant to bear. As the Heishui Beast fully emerges from the ice, the very air seems to freeze in place. The weight of its presence is suffocating, and the atmosphere around it thickens with an unnatural chill that presses against your skin, making every breath feel like inhaling sharp, icy needles. The villagers, who had once stood together with a sense of unity and strength, now feel an overwhelming sense of helplessness, as though the beast's mere existence bends them to its will. It is not just the cold that makes them tremble, it is the ancient power that radiates from the creature, an ancient force that seems to transcend time itself. The beast's massive serpentine body coils across the frozen river, the scales glistening like shards of glass, sharp and unforgiving. Every movement it makes sends tremors through the land, and the ice beneath it cracks further, like a dying creature struggling to survive beneath the weight of something far greater than it was ever meant to hold. The ground shakes with each deliberate shift of the creature's body, as if the earth itself is responding to the rise of this ancient entity from the depths of the river. With every slither of the beast's form, the fog thickens, swirling around it like a living shroud. The wind picks up again, but it is different now, charged with an energy that feels alive, hungry, and predatory. The snow falls in heavier, denser sheets, obscuring everything in a veil of white, and the fog becomes a choking presence that wraps itself around the village. It is as though the Heishui Beast has summoned the storm to aid it, bending nature itself to its will. The villagers are paralyzed with fear, too terrified to move, their minds consumed with a singular thought. The legends are true. This is no mere storm. This is the Heishui Beast, the creature born from the river, the living embodiment of the cold, the storm, and the ice that governs this land. And now, it has come to reclaim its domain. As the Heishui Beast rises higher, its fiery eyes burn brighter, cutting through the thickening fog and snow like twin beacons in the darkness. They glow with an unnatural intensity, an intensity that feels as though it could pierce straight through the fog, straight through the snow, and straight through you. The gaze of the beast is hypnotic, its fiery eyes locking onto the villagers with an unyielding force. It is as if the creature can see not only them, but into the very depths of their souls. You try to look away, to break the gaze, but you can't. It's as if the beast's eyes hold you in place, as if your body is no longer your own. Your heart pounds in your chest, each beat sending a wave of cold fear coursing through your veins. Your thoughts become clouded, your mind consumed with the beast's presence. In that moment, you feel as though you are nothing more than a fragile speck of dust in the face of something far greater, something ancient and powerful that has always been here, waiting beneath the river, waiting to rise. The villagers stand frozen, unable to tear their eyes away from the creature. They can feel its power radiating from those glowing eyes, an ancient power, a primal force that is as much a part of the land as the river itself. They realize, with sickening clarity, that the Heishui Beast is not simply a beast. It is the very embodiment of winter's fury. It is the storm, the ice, and the cold brought to life. And it is watching them, waiting. The beast moves again, its massive body undulating across the ice, each shift of its serpentine form sending ripples through the frozen surface of the river. The ice groans under its weight, and the cracks spread wider, further, as if the earth itself is breaking apart beneath the pressure of something too powerful to contain. With each movement, the creature redefines the landscape, reshaping the land around it with an ease that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The villagers can feel the cold pressing in from all sides, suffocating them. But it is not just the chill of the wind that chills them to the core, it is the weight of the beast's presence. It feels as though the very air is thick with its power, as though it is bending nature itself to its will. The fog thickens, swirling around the creature like a living thing, as if it is an extension of the beast's power, wrapping everything in an impenetrable haze. The villagers take a step back, their breath shallow, their legs shaking as the reality of the situation sinks in. They are no longer standing in the safety of their village. They are standing on the edge of something far greater, something beyond their control. The Heishui Beast has come, and with it comes an unrelenting force that has no regard for human life. The villagers, though powerful in their own right, are nothing in the face of this ancient being. They know now that they are at its mercy. With a low growl, the Heishui Beast pauses, its fiery eyes scanning the village. The very earth beneath the villagers' feet seems to shudder as it lets out a guttural roar, a sound that reverberates in your chest, shaking you to the core. The ground beneath you seems to tremble in response, and you feel as if the very landscape is alive with the beast's presence, responding to its call. The villagers, now caught in the presence of the Heishui Beast, can feel the weight of their helplessness. There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The storm, the fog, the ice, all of it is part of the beast's dominion. There is no escaping it. It is not just a force of nature, it is nature itself, ruling over them with an iron fist, bending the elements to its will. You can hear your own heart pounding in your chest, the sound deafening in the silence that follows the beast's roar. The snow continues to fall, the wind continues to howl, and the fog continues to thicken, but all of it is insignificant in the face of the beast's power. The very air is charged with its presence, a heavy, suffocating weight that presses down on the villagers, pushing them closer to the brink of panic. And yet, in the face of such overwhelming terror, there is a strange sense of awe. The Heishui Beast is not just a creature, it is a living, breathing reminder of the ancient, untamable forces that govern this land. It is not something that can be fought or defeated. It is something that must be respected, even feared, because it is as much a part of the world as the very river that has given it life. The villagers stand, frozen in place, watching as the Heishui Beast continues its slow, deliberate movements across the ice. Its fiery eyes never leave them, and in that gaze, they know that this is only the beginning. The storm, the cold, and the beast have come to claim their dominion, and nothing in the world can stop it. The Heishui Beast is not just a creature, it is the very embodiment of winter's unyielding, ancient power, and it will reign over this land for as long as the river flows and the storm howls. The Heishui Beast moves with slow, deliberate grace, its massive body undulating across the ice. Its long, serpentine form glides effortlessly, the very earth beneath it quivering in response. Each movement of the beast sends shockwaves through the ground, sending vibrations that the villagers can feel in their very bones. The air around them seems to grow colder still, a biting frost that penetrates every layer of clothing, every fabric of warmth. It is as if the very atmosphere has been bent to the will of the creature, as if it owns the wind, the snow, and the cold that lashes against the villagers' faces. The beast's fiery eyes lock onto them, glowing brighter with every step it takes. The villagers are immobilized, their fear locking them in place like prey in the gaze of a predator. It is an ancient fear, one that runs deeper than any story or legend they've ever heard. This is no longer a tale they are standing before it, facing the raw, untamable force of nature that is the Heishui Beast. The ice beneath the beast creaks and groans, as though even the frozen surface of the river knows that it is being reshaped by something far greater than the human touch. The fog, thick and suffocating, wraps around them, turning the world into a suffocating, featureless void. The villagers can barely make out the figures standing beside them, their faces twisted with terror, their breaths ragged in the freezing air. The storm howls like a chorus of spirits, but all of them know that it is not the wind they should fear, it is the Heishui Beast that has returned, and it is drawing closer with every moment. It is the elder, the wisest among them, who first speaks, breaking the oppressive silence that has fallen over the group. His voice is shaky, barely above a whisper, but it is enough to carry over the howling wind, enough to reach the ears of every villager present. The beast, it has come again, he says, his words carrying a heavy, resigned weight. The villagers turn to him, their eyes wide, filled with fear and disbelief. They have heard the stories of the Heishui Beast, the ancient creature that rises from the depths of the river when the cold is at its most intense, when the ice is thickest. But hearing the elder speak those words aloud, the confirmation that the beast has returned sends a wave of icy dread washing over them. The elder's words are not just an observation, they are a recognition of the inevitable. There is no fighting the Heishui Beast. There is no hiding from it. The beast is a force of nature, a primal power that cannot be controlled, and the villagers know that in its presence they are nothing more than fleeting beings, insignificant in comparison to the ancient force that now moves among them. As the Heishui Beast continues to move closer, its eyes never leaving the villagers, a deep, overwhelming sense of helplessness settles over the group. The cold becomes unbearable, the chill sinking deeper into their skin with every passing second. The wind howls louder, but it is still no match for the icy grip of the beast that tightens around them. The storm, once just a warning, is now fully upon them, closing in around the village like a vice, pushing in from all sides. The fog wraps tighter, obscuring their vision, making everything appear distant, disconnected. The beast's power is absolute. There is no question of escape, no hope for survival. The villagers stand paralyzed, their bodies trembling, but their legs unmoving. The very weight of the Heishui Beast's presence holds them in place, frozen in fear. The ground trembles beneath them, but it is not just from the movements of the beast. It is as if the land itself is bending under the weight of this ancient power, as if the world is being reshaped with every step the creature takes. The villagers, even the bravest among them, know that they cannot fight this. They cannot resist the Heishui Beast. This is not a creature that they can face down with weapons or courage. It is a force of nature, untamable, unstoppable, beyond human comprehension. The storm is not just a result of the weather, it is the beast's command. The wind, the snow, the ice, everything bends to its will. And yet, in the midst of the fear, there is an undeniable sense of awe. The Heishui Beast is not just a creature, it is a living, breathing embodiment of the power of winter. It is the storm, the ice, the cold, the fog. It is nature, in its rawest and most terrifying form. And it will reshape the world around it as it sees fit. The villagers realize that this is not a battle they can win, nor is it one they should try to fight. The Heishui Beast has come, and they must accept its power, for there is no escaping it. The Heishui Beast moves ever closer, and the villagers feel the weight of its approach in every fiber of their being. The fog parts before it, swirling around its massive form like a living cloak. The beast's eyes burn brighter, illuminating the landscape in an eerie glow that cuts through the darkness. The villagers, though terrified, cannot look away from the creature. Its gaze is mesmerizing, its presence overwhelming. With every step it takes, the air grows colder. The very atmosphere seems to bend and twist around it, responding to its power. The ground cracks and shifts beneath its body, the ice breaking apart as though it were paper crumbling under the pressure of its form. The Heishui Beast is unstoppable, and as it closes in, the villagers know that there is nothing they can do. The storm that rages around them is not a natural force, it is the manifestation of the beast's fury, a fury that will not be quelled until it has claimed what it came for. The village elder, his face pale with fear, looks toward the beast one last time, his voice barely a whisper as he speaks. "We are at its mercy." His words are not just a recognition of the beast's power. They are a surrender, an acceptance that this ancient force has come to reclaim the land, to remind the villagers of their place in a world far older and more powerful than they could ever imagine. The Heishui Beast stands before them now, its massive body coiled and ready, its fiery eyes burning through the fog. The villagers, standing in its shadow, are fully aware that they are powerless to stop it. The beast has come, and they are no longer masters of their own fate. They are witnesses to something far greater than themselves, a force of nature that has lived on this earth for centuries and will continue to rule as long as the river flows and the snow falls. The Heishui Beast has returned, and the village, for better or worse, is now its domain. As the growl fades, the very air around the Heishui Beast seems to thicken, charged with a palpable, almost tangible energy. The wind, which had been whipping through the village, suddenly stops. It is as though the beast has taken command of everything: the storm, the snow, the very forces of nature themselves. The stillness that follows is suffocating, the world held in a breathless pause. Even the snow, which had been falling in heavy sheets, now drifts lazily to the ground, suspended in the frozen air like time itself has come to a standstill. The Heishui Beast's eyes never leave the villagers, its gaze burning through the fog like two molten flames. The intense heat emanating from its eyes feels unnatural in the face of the icy cold that surrounds them. It is a gaze that demands attention, demands submission, and every villager, even the strongest among them, can feel the weight of it pressing down on them, like a heavy stone crushing their chest. For a long moment, the beast does not move. It simply stands there, watching the villagers, allowing the silence to stretch between them as though it is savoring their fear. The cold grows deeper, more biting, until it feels as if the very marrow in your bones is turning to ice. Every breath you take comes in short, ragged bursts, each exhale visible in the freezing air. But the cold is not just external, it seeps into your mind, creeping into your thoughts, making you feel small, insignificant, as if you were nothing more than dust beneath the beast's colossal weight. It is not just the snow, the ice, or the storm that chills you now. It is the very presence of the Heishui Beast. It is as though the creature has woven itself into the fabric of the land, the river, and the sky. You can feel the weight of it pressing down on you, tightening like a vice around your chest, making it harder to breathe, harder to think, as if the very world is bending to the will of this ancient force. With a slow, deliberate movement, the Heishui Beast shifts its massive body. The earth beneath it groans, the ice cracking loudly as the beast's serpentine form slides over the frozen river. The villagers instinctively step back, their eyes wide with terror. But no matter how far they step, they cannot escape the creature's gaze. It is as if the beast's presence permeates everything: the fog, the storm, the cold, all of it bends to the will of the Heishui Beast. The air becomes colder still, the snow falling thicker and faster, as if the creature is summoning the storm to increase its power. The winds pick up again, howling like a wolf on the hunt, but this time they carry with them an unnatural force, a primal fury. The trees bend beneath the gusts, their branches cracking under the weight of the storm, and yet the Heishui Beast moves with effortless grace, its massive form undulating across the ice with a terrifying fluidity. As it moves closer to the village, the earth shakes beneath its weight, the ground trembling in fear. The villagers, frozen in place, can only watch as the beast slides closer, its fiery eyes locking onto them with an intensity that makes them feel as though their very souls are being measured, judged. The cold around them becomes oppressive, suffocating, as though the beast's very presence is draining the warmth from their bodies, leaving them numb and helpless. Finally, the Heishui Beast comes to a stop before the villagers, its massive body coiled like a serpent ready to strike. The ice beneath it shifts, the cracks spreading outward like the tendrils of some ancient creature reaching for its prey. The beast's fiery eyes burn with an intensity that seems to pierce through the fog and snow, locking onto each villager one by one. There is no escape from its gaze, no retreat from the icy grip of its power. The elder, standing at the front of the group, is the first to speak again, his voice shaking with the weight of his fear. "We are at its mercy," he whispers, his words barely audible over the howling wind. The other villagers stand motionless, unable to speak, unable to move, as the reality of their situation sinks in. The Heishui Beast has come not to destroy, but to remind them of the land's true ruler, to reclaim its dominion over the river, the cold, and the storm. The creature's presence is not one of malice, but of inevitability. It is the very essence of winter brought to life, and it will not be swayed, nor will it be challenged. The storm that rages around them is its doing. The snow that falls, the ice that cracks all of it, is part of the Heishui Beast's design. The land, the river, the storm, all are under its control, and there is nothing the villagers can do to stop it. For what feels like an eternity, the villagers stand in silence, caught between fear and awe. The Heishui Beast towers over them, its massive form gliding effortlessly across the ice. its fiery eyes glowing with an intensity that threatens to consume everything in its path. It is as though the very air itself is alive with the power of the beast, and the villagers, so small in comparison, are utterly insignificant. And yet, in the face of such overwhelming power, there is no resistance. There is no fight to be had. The villagers understand, deep in their hearts, that the Heishui Beast is not their enemy, it is a force of nature, a reminder of the power that lies beyond human comprehension. They are no longer in control of their world. The beast has come to claim it, to reshape it in its image, and there is nothing they can do to prevent it. As the beast moves deeper into the village, the air grows even colder, and the snow falls faster, the storm intensifying with each step it takes. The villagers watch as the world around them changes, the very landscape bending under the weight of the beast's power. The trees bend under the force of the winds, the snow piles higher, and the river, once a barrier, now seems like a path leading to the heart of the beast's dominion. The Heishui Beast has come to claim what is rightfully its own, and there is no escape from its grasp. The village, once a place of warmth and safety, is now swallowed by the cold, the storm, and the creature that rules over them all. There is no turning back, no hope for reprieve. The Heishui Beast has returned, and the villagers are left to witness the world being reshaped before their very eyes. In the presence of such power, they are nothing but spectators, standing in the shadow of a force that has ruled this land for centuries. They are no longer in control. The Heishui Beast reigns supreme, and the storm it commands will not cease until it has claimed the land once more. The villagers, still trembling with the weight of what they have witnessed, slowly make their way back to their homes. The storm has passed, but the atmosphere remains thick with a sense of foreboding. The Heishui Beast, once an immovable, terrifying force of nature, has vanished back into the depths of the frozen river, but its presence lingers in the air, like the aftertaste of a bitter storm. The fog that had swallowed the land now begins to dissipate, but it leaves behind a deep sense of unease, as if the world itself is not quite the same anymore. The villagers walk through the snow-covered paths, their lanterns casting weak, flickering light against the walls of their home. The familiar sights of the village, now muffled and soft beneath the snow, seem distant and unreal. The usual sounds of the night, the rustling of animals, the occasional creak of the trees, are strangely absent, replaced by an eerie silence that feels unnatural after the chaos of the storm. Even the wind, which had once howled with such intensity, now only whispers faintly, like the last breath of a fading storm. The homes are quieter now, the hearth still burning, but the warmth not quite enough to dispel the cold that has settled deep into the villagers' bones. The firelight flickers and dances in the corners of their homes, but the shadows seem deeper, darker. They sit in silence, the weight of the beast's presence still hanging in the air. The silence is filled with unspoken thoughts, a shared understanding that something has changed in them, something that cannot be unlearned or undone. The Heishui Beast, with its ancient power, has left its mark on the villagers, and they will never be the same. As the villagers settle into their homes, the quiet that surrounds them feels oppressive, as if the storm has left more than just physical traces behind. The wind no longer howls with the same fury, but its absence makes the silence even more palpable. The villagers sit close to their hearths, the flames casting flickering shadows on the walls. But it is not the warmth of the fire that eases the chill in the air. It is the lingering presence of the Heishui Beast, an ancient power that has seeped into their very souls. Each villager, in their own way, reflects on what they have just witnessed. They cannot shake the image of the creature, the glowing, fiery eyes that seemed to pierce through them, the monstrous form that moved across the river with an unnatural grace. They had heard the stories, whispered by the elders, spoken around fires, and passed down through generations, but none of them had ever truly believed. Not until now. The Heishui Beast was no longer a legend, no longer a tale to frighten children. It was real, and it had shown them a force beyond their control. In the quiet of the homes, the villagers share uneasy glances, each of them wondering the same thing. What does this mean for us? The elder, who had been the first to speak when the beast appeared, sits alone by his fire. His mind races, trying to make sense of what has happened. He had always believed in the old stories, in the power of the land, but seeing the Heishui Beast with his own eyes, feeling its presence, has shaken him to his core. He thought he understood the balance between man and nature, but the beast had shown him that nature is not something to be understood, not something that can be controlled. Nature is a force, and when it stirs, it does so with a power that humans can neither predict nor survive if they dare to challenge it. As the night deepens, the villagers begin to talk, their voices low and tentative, as though afraid to break the fragile silence. They gather in small circles, eyes darting to the windows, to the shadows, to the firelight that flickers like a reflection of the beast's fiery eyes. The elder speaks again, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of what he has learned. "We are not masters of this land," he says, his words cutting through the stillness like a blade. "We live here, in the river's shadow, in the storm's fury, but we are not in control. We have been living with the belief that we can tame the forces of nature, but the Heishui Beast has shown us the truth. Nature does not bend to our will. It only gives us the illusion of control until it decides to remind us that it is far older, far stronger, and far more powerful than we could ever imagine." The villagers nod in quiet agreement, the truth of the elder's words settling over them like a blanket of cold. They have always respected nature, but now they see it with new eyes. The river, the forest, the storms, they are not just the backdrop of their lives. They are forces that can change the world in an instant, forces that can bring death or life with a mere shift in the wind or a flicker of ice. The Heishui Beast has left a mark on them, not just in the terror it instilled, but in the lesson it taught. It is a lesson of humility, of understanding that there are powers beyond human comprehension, and that, sometimes, all they can do is survive in the face of it. As the days pass, the villagers go about their daily tasks, but something has shifted within them. They are quieter now, more subdued, as if the very air they breathe has changed. The ice on the river continues to thicken, the snow continues to fall, but the village moves in a more deliberate, respectful way. They no longer take the land for granted, no longer assume that the river will always be still, that the storms will always pass, that the ice will always hold firm beneath their feet. The winds still howl through the trees, but now they do so with a sense of acknowledgement, not defiance. The villagers look to the sky, to the river, to the mountain peaks in the distance, with a new sense of reverence. They have learned that they cannot conquer nature, that they cannot bend it to their will, but they can coexist with it. live with it, if only they remain humble and respectful. The children, too, feel the shift. The stories they once thought were just tales are now alive in their imaginations, and they speak of the Heishui Beast with a new understanding, a quiet respect. They play by the river's edge, but they no longer approach the water with the carefree attitude of their childhood. They pause, listen to the sound of the current, the crack of the ice, and they remember the beast, the force that lies beneath the frozen surface, waiting. The Heishui Beast, though gone, has left its mark. Each winter that follows, as the snow falls and the winds blow, the villagers remember. They remember the lesson that nature is not to be controlled, that there are forces greater than them. The fear they once felt gives way to a quiet respect, a deeper understanding that each winter brings with it its own mysteries, its own powers. And so, the village returns to its rhythm, its daily life, but it is not the same. The Heishui Beast may have disappeared into the depths of the river, but its influence lingers, like the quiet chill in the air that reminds them of their place in the world. They go about their work, tending to their homes, their animals, their families, but they do so with a new perspective, a perspective that sees the river, the storm, and the ice not as threats to be feared or conquered, but as forces to be respected and understood. In the years to come, when the winds howl and the snow falls thick, the villagers will remember the Heishui Beast, and they will know that every winter is not just a season to endure, but a reminder that the world they live in is not just their own. It is a world shaped by forces far greater than themselves. And in that understanding, they find peace, not in the knowledge that they can control nature, but in the quiet acceptance that nature will always be the true ruler of the land. The Heishui Beast may be gone, but the lesson it left behind remains. The villagers now live in harmony with the land, knowing that the river, the cold, and the storms will always be there, just as they have always been. And they will live with them, side by side, in quiet respect. As the night settles, the villagers gather in small groups, huddled around their hearths, sharing quiet, trembling words. The elder, who had spoken before, is the first to break the silence. His voice is weary, heavy with the gravity of the events that have unfolded. But there is a quiet wisdom in his words. "We have seen it," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. The Heishui Beast, a creature not of our world, but born from the very river itself. It is nature, in its rawest, most powerful form. The other villagers listen intently, nodding, as they gather closer around him. The elder continues, his voice growing stronger. "We cannot control nature. We can only respect it. The Heishui Beast is not a beast to be conquered, but a force to be understood. It is not our enemy, but a reminder nature is greater than us. We are but small parts of this world. And when we forget that, when we think we can master it, nature will remind us of its power. The beast is the embodiment of that power, a force that cannot be tamed, only respected." There is a deep silence in the room as the villagers reflect on his words. Each of them, in their own way, has felt the power of the Heishui Beast, felt the overwhelming force of nature that swept through their village, that froze the very air, that turned the landscape into a cold, shifting nightmare. They all know the truth in the elder's words. It is not the storm, the ice, or the beast that they must fear, but the hubris of thinking they can control it. The Heishui Beast has shown them the invisible power of the natural world, the forces that shape the land, the rivers, the wind, the very seasons, and they must live in harmony with it, not in defiance. As the elders' words hang heavily in the air, the villagers sit in solemn reflection, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the hearths. The fire crackles, but it feels far removed from the wild forces they've just witnessed. The elders' quiet wisdom resonates deeply, sinking into their hearts like a deep-rooted seed. The Heishui Beast was not just a creature, it was a living reminder of the immense, unfathomable power that courses through the very land they call home. It was nature's way of showing them how small and fragile they are in the grand scheme of the world. The wind howls outside, as if responding to the beast's departure. But inside, there is a deep, profound stillness. It is not the peace of tranquility, but the kind of stillness that comes after a great storm has passed, leaving in its wake the unsettling feeling that things are never quite the same again. Each villager, in their own way, is coming to terms with the magnitude of what they have experienced. The stories, the warnings, the old legends, they had heard them for years, but now they have lived them. A woman, her hands shaking slightly as she stirs the soup in her pot, looks up and meets the elder's eyes. Her voice is soft but determined. "But why now?" she asks, her words hanging in the stillness. "Why has the beast returned? What does it want from us?" The elder exhales deeply, his old eyes reflecting the flames, dancing with the memories of a lifetime. The Heishui Beast does not need a reason. It is not driven by want or need, as we are. It simply is, he says, his voice heavy with understanding. Nature does not owe us explanations. It is neither cruel nor kind. It is simply a force that exists, one that has always been there, and it will continue long after we are gone. The Heishui Beast rises when the time is right, when the river calls to it, when the ice is thick enough to sustain it. It is part of the eternal cycle, and we are merely passing through. And the woman nods slowly, the weight of his words settling in her chest like a stone. It is a simple truth, one that doesn't offer much comfort, but it is true nonetheless. They are not in control. They never have been. The seasons turn, the storms come, and the river flows, regardless of human interference. Another villager, a man who had stood at the back of the group during the beast's emergence, speaks up. "But how can we live with this?" His voice trembles, though he tries to keep it steady. "How can we accept that we are so helpless, so small in the face of something so immense?" The elder looks at him with calm, unwavering eyes. "By remembering that we are not meant to conquer nature," he replies. "We are meant to live alongside it. We cannot fight against the tide. We cannot stop the winds from blowing or the snow from falling. But we can adapt. We can respect the forces that shape our world and learn to live with them, rather than trying to control them." There is a deep silence as the villagers digest the elder's words. Some look down at their hands, others gaze into the fire as if seeking answers there. But all of them feel it, the unspoken truth that has now been laid bare. The Heishui Beast has not come to destroy them, but to remind them of their place in the world. It is a reminder that they are not the masters of nature, but a part of it, as fragile and temporary as the snow that falls each winter. Days pass, and the village slowly returns to a rhythm that feels familiar yet subtly different. The ice on the river remains thick, the snow still blankets the earth, and the winds continue to howl. But the villagers no longer take these forces for granted. They move with a new awareness, a deep respect for the land that provides for them, but also has the power to take it all away. The children no longer play so carelessly near the river, no longer running wild in the snow, unaware of the power beneath the ice. They play with a new sense of caution, listening to the elders' stories with quiet reverence, understanding that the river, the storm, and the cold are not just things to be feared, they are things to be respected. They are part of the world they live in, as natural as the earth beneath their feet, and every season brings with it its own lessons to be learned. The adults, too, have changed. The men who had once ventured deep into the forest without a second thought now speak with more reverence before they leave, acknowledging the dangers that lie beyond their home. They know that they cannot control the land, but they can respect it. They take the time to honor the rituals passed down through generations, offering prayers to the river, the trees, the sky, and the land that sustains them. They acknowledge that they are only caretakers of this world, not its masters. Even the younger ones, who had once thought of the Heishui Beast as nothing more than a bedtime story, now carry a quiet understanding in their hearts. They no longer laugh and joke about the tales their parents tell. They know, deep down, that the beast is real, that it is part of the land they walk on, that it is a force beyond their understanding, but one that they must respect. The village begins to feel quieter, the unease still lingering like a shadow over their lives. But there is also a calmness, a stillness that is more profound than the chaos they once knew. They move through their days with more care, with more thoughtfulness, understanding that nature will give them what they need, but it will also take when it deems necessary. As the next winter approaches, the villagers brace themselves for what is to come. The snow begins to fall again, softer this time, as if the land itself is gentler now that the beast has passed. The wind howls once more, but it no longer carries the same sense of impending doom. It is the wind of winter, a natural force, but one that is no longer seen as something to fight against. The villagers understand it now. It is a part of the land, part of the seasons, and part of the cycle that governs their world. They stand at the edge of the river once more, watching the ice form on the surface, and they remember the Heishui Beast, its eyes burning through the fog, its presence shifting the land beneath their feet. They know it will return someday. The beast, like the storm, like the seasons, is a part of the land they live on. It is a force beyond them, beyond their understanding, and they must live with it, not as enemies, but as a reminder of the power that exists in the natural world. As the years go by, the memory of the Heishui Beast lingers, not as a source of fear, but as a quiet legacy. The villagers live in harmony with the land, understanding that every season brings its own power, its own mystery. The Heishui Beast has taught them the truth that nature is not to be controlled, it is to be respected. The storm, the river, the ice, the cold, they are not enemies, but forces of life that will always be beyond their comprehension, and they must learn to coexist with them. Each winter, as the snow falls and the winds howl, the villagers remember the beast, and they remember the lesson it taught them. They no longer see the land as something to conquer, but as something to live alongside, with reverence and respect. The Heishui Beast, though it has not appeared again, has left its mark on them, and they carry its lesson with them always. They have learned, as all things in nature must, that there is a time to fight and a time to surrender, a time to respect and a time to honor. And in that balance, they find peace. The land will always be greater than them, and they will always be a part of it, small, fragile, but never alone. The weeks pass slowly, and the storm that had gripped the land becomes a distant memory, though its impact lingers in the hearts of the villagers. The world, though still covered in snow, feels different now, quieter, more respectful. The cold, which had once felt like an enemy, now feels like a part of the land, a natural force to be honored. The villagers go about their daily tasks, but there is a new sense of humility in their movements, a deep awareness that the land around them is not something to be dominated, but to be lived with. The river, once a place of mystery and danger, now feels like a living, breathing entity, its frozen surface a reminder of the creature that had risen from its depths. The villagers no longer see it as a mere waterway, but as something more, something with its own power, its own life. And they treat it with a reverence that was not there before, acknowledging the forces that shape their world and understanding that they are not in control. The Heishui Beast is gone now, its fiery eyes no longer burning through the fog. The river is still, the snow continues to fall, but the villagers know that this is not the end. The beast may have disappeared for now, but it is always there, beneath the surface, waiting, a reminder that nature's power is never truly gone. It is only dormant, waiting for the right time to rise again. The villagers continue with their daily routines, but their actions are quieter, more mindful. They walk with a subtle reverence, no longer taking for granted the land beneath their feet, the snow that blankets their homes, or the river that winds through their village. There is a sense of balance now, a deep understanding that they are not the masters of this world, but merely a part of it. The Heishui Beast, in its terrifying power, has shown them that the land is far older, far more enduring than anything they could ever comprehend. It is not theirs to conquer, but theirs to coexist with. The river, once something that only served their needs, now feels like a living thing, a part of the world that demands respect. The ice that coats its surface is no longer just a barrier, but a reminder of the power that lies beneath. Every crack in the frozen layer, every shift in the ice, feels like a message from the deep, a subtle whisper of the Heishui Beast's presence, reminding them that it is always watching, always waiting. The villagers now look at the river with a new kind of respect. They no longer take its resources for granted. They do not approach it with the same carefree attitudes they once did. The river is no longer just a source of livelihood. It is a force to be reckoned with, a powerful and mysterious entity that should be approached with caution. Every step they take along its banks is done with care, a quiet acknowledgement of the creature that once rose from its depths. As the days pass, the village continues to thrive, but it does so in a new way. There is a stillness to the way the villagers move through their lives now, a respect that wasn't there before. They no longer take the land's offerings for granted. Every winter, every season is seen as a gift, one that must be honored rather than controlled. The children, who once ran through the snow without a care in the world, now pause by the river's edge, watching the flow of water beneath the frozen surface. They do not approach the water carelessly. They stand at a respectful distance, their eyes wide with wonder, as if they can sense the power that lies beneath. Their elders, the ones who have lived through the stories and witnessed the Heishui Beast's return, now teach them not just to fear the river, but to understand it, to respect it as an equal. They tell them of the beast's rise, not as a tale of horror, but as a story of nature's sovereignty. The villagers, once quick to take from the land, now give back. They offer prayers to the river before they fish its waters, thanking it for its bounty, acknowledging that the flow of life is not a one-way street. The seasons are no longer something to endure, but a cycle to be revered. The elder speaks often of balance, of living in harmony with the world rather than against it. It is a lesson he learned from the Heishui Beast, and he passes it down to each generation with a quiet, enduring conviction. Years pass, and the Heishui Beast becomes something of a memory. The story of its rise and the lessons it imparted are passed down, not with the same terror as before, but with reverence. It is not a story of something to fear, but a story of something to honor. The villagers understand now that the beast, in all its terrifying power, is just another part of the world. They inhabit a world where the river flows with a will of its own, where the storm has its place, and where the land and sky are more powerful than any human ambition. The Heishui Beast may have disappeared into the river, but its presence is still felt. The villagers no longer fear it, but they carry its lesson in their hearts, knowing that nature's power is not something to be conquered. It is something to coexist with. And so, life goes on, season after season, as it always has. The snow falls, the wind blows, the river runs, and the Heishui Beast waits beneath the ice, as it always has. Each winter brings with it a quiet reminder of the forces that govern the world, and the villagers, now more than ever, live in harmony with those forces. They no longer seek to control the land, the river, or the sky. Instead, they understand that these forces, as untamable as the Heishui Beast itself, must be respected. In that respect, they find peace, knowing that their lives are part of something much larger, much older than they can ever fully comprehend. The village continues to flourish, but it flourishes in a new way, guided by the lessons learned from the Heishui Beast's return. The villagers are more attuned to the rhythms of nature, more aware of the seasons and the forces that shape their world. They watch the sky more carefully, listen to the wind more attentively, and approach the river with a newfound humility. The balance between man and nature has been restored, not through conquest, but through understanding. The children of the village grow up with the stories of the Heishui Beast, not as a tale of fear, but as a tale of wisdom. They learn that the river is not just a source of life, but a force to be respected. They grow up knowing that the seasons are not simply something to endure, they are something to live with, to honor, to learn from. The lessons of the Heishui Beast echo through the generations, a reminder that nature, with all its power and mystery, is not something to fight against, but something to coexist with in quiet harmony. And so, the village lives on, surrounded by the storm, the river, and the land. The Heishui Beast remains not as a fearsome force, but as a lesson, a reminder that nature is not something to control, but something to respect. The villagers live in its shadow, but they no longer fear it. Instead, they walk beside it, knowing that, in the end, nature will always have the final say. The winter continues to unfold, the snow falling in soft, steady sheets, covering the land in a blanket of white. The villagers, though still wary of the cold, now find a strange peace in it. The fear that had gripped them in the wake of the Heishui Beast's appearance has been replaced by a quiet respect. They move with more care, more attention to the world around them. They no longer take the land for granted. They understand now that the river, the storm, the ice, they are all part of the same world, and they must live in harmony with them. And so, life in the village returns to normal, but the villagers are changed. They carry with them a deeper understanding of the world, an understanding that the forces of nature are not to be controlled or fought, but to be respected and revered. The Heishui Beast may have disappeared into the cold depths of the river, but its lesson remains with them, carried in the quiet stillness of winter, in the crackling of the fire, in the heavy weight of the snow on the ground. Each winter from now on will be different. Every snowfall, every gust of wind, every layer of ice will serve as a reminder that nature is more powerful than anything they can comprehend. The Heishui Beast has shown them this, and they will carry its lesson with them for the rest of their lives. They will respect the land, the river, and the storm, knowing that each winter brings with it its own mysteries, its own forces to be respected. And as the Heishui Beast slips back into the depths of the river, its fiery eyes fading into memory, the villagers know that the world they live in is far more ancient, far more mysterious than they had ever imagined. They are no longer conquerors of the land, they are part of it, and with that realization comes a deep, quiet peace. The sun rises slowly, breaking through the fog that has lingered since the storm passed. Its soft golden light filters through the trees, casting long shadows on the snow-covered ground. The river lies still, its surface frozen and silent, reflecting the quiet beauty of the morning. The world feels peaceful, but the air still holds a certain weight, a reminder of the power that lies beneath the surface, both of nature and of the land. As the villagers gather, drawn to the warmth of their hearths and the light filtering through the fog, the storyteller stands by the riverbank. His voice is steady, but there's a quiet reverence in his words. He speaks not just to the people around him, but to the land, the river, and the sky that stretches above them. The Heishui Beast may have disappeared back into the depths of the river, its fiery eyes fading into memory, he says, his gaze sweeping across the village. But the lesson it left behind is not something that will fade. The beast was a force of nature, ancient and powerful, a reminder that we are not masters of this world. We are mere travelers, passing through a world much older than ourselves, and we must always remember that nature is not to be conquered. It is to be respected. His voice carries a quiet strength as he continues, "We live in balance with nature. The wind, the storm, the river, the ice, they are all part of the same world. We are but a small part of that world, and if we forget that, if we forget the power that nature holds, it will remind us." The Heishui Beast reminded us of that truth. But we are not alone in this world. We are its caretakers, not its conquerors. The storyteller pauses, allowing the words to sink in, the silence stretching between them like the land itself, vast and enduring. "Never forget," he says softly, his eyes meeting those of the villagers. "We live in balance with nature. Always honor it. Always respect it. For the world is not ours to control. It is a gift, one that we must live with, not against. The villagers nod in quiet understanding, their faces reflecting the wisdom of his words. The lesson of the Heishui Beast has been learned, not in fear, but in quiet reverence. They return to their homes, their lives, with a new understanding, a deep appreciation for the world they live in, and the forces that shape it. As the night falls, the snow continues to fall gently from the sky, a quiet reminder of the world's enduring beauty. The wind whispers softly through the trees, carrying the echoes of the beast's presence, a memory that will never fully fade. The villagers know now, as they rest their tired bodies beside their hearths, that every winter, every season, every storm is a part of the same cycle, and they are part of it, living in harmony with the forces around them, no longer seeking to dominate, but to honor. The fire burns low, the quiet murmur of the village settling into a peaceful rhythm. The snow falls softly outside, each flake a gentle reminder of nature's power and grace. As the villagers prepare to sleep, their minds are calm, their hearts at peace, knowing they are living in the rhythm of the world. The storyteller's voice fades as he whispers his final words to the night. Sleep well, for tomorrow brings a new day, a new opportunity to honor the land that sustains us. Rest in peace, knowing that nature, in all its majesty, watches over us. And as the night deepens, the village rests, wrapped in the quiet embrace of winter, its lessons carried with them into the world outside. Good night,